Jason Little is a versatile fiction author exploring genres ranging from science fiction and horror to suspense and mystery. This marks Jason's second contribution to Mysteries to Die For, where he embraced the challenge of crafting a story without a trail of bodies. Discover more of Jason's work at jasonlittlewriting.com. The link is in the show notes. Welcome to Mysteries to Die For.
My bad. I left it really loud from last episode. That's on me, guys.
I am TG Wolff, and I'm here with Jack, my piano player and producer. This is a podcast where we combine storytelling with original music to put you at the heart of a mystery. All stories are structured to challenge you to beat the detectives to the solutions. Jack and I perform these live, front to back, no breaks, no fakes, no retakes. The rules for law and order create the boundaries for civil coexistence, and ideally, the backdrop for individuals, families, and companies to grow and thrive. Breaking these rules puts civil order at risk. And while murder is the big daddy of crimes, codified ordinances across municipal subdivisions, counties, states, and countries show the nearly endless ways there are to create mayhem. This season, we put our detective skills to the test with Season 8, Anything But Murder. And this is Episode 6b, where attempted infanticide is the featured crime. This is Safe Haven, Part 2, by Jason Little.
Alright, last episode we used harp sound effect 2. This episode we're going to be using harp sound effect 1.
Ooh. Being bold by going from 2 to 1.
Really, this harp just has less of an attack on it, and it's more of a...
What does attack? What does attack mean?
Well, it's going to be a softer first feel to it. So, like, if you listen to a snare drum, most of what you hear is an attack, and then you hear a little bit of a snare, you hear a little bit of the ring, but most of it is just that initial hit, that initial strike. So what you get in this harp is a lot less of that initial strike and more of that reverberant sound.
It's pretty.
It is.
It's mellow.
Yep, that's why I had to turn the volume up so that listeners can hear it. Alrighty, let's jump into it.
All right, well, this is part 2 of Safe Haven. So please go back if you haven't listened to part 1. Get all of the detail of who's doing what. If you did listen to it and you're here back with us 2 weeks later, I'm going to give you a little summary to help you remember where we left everybody off. So Branch River firefighter Barrett Turner was alone at the firehouse when an infant was abandoned in a Safe Haven box. New to the process, Barrett called the number posted on a flyer for Child Protective Services. The woman who was dispatched, Tricia Vickers, took the baby and subsequently tried to murder him. Barrett then took the baby to the hospital where orderly Alexander Mickelson also tried to kill the baby. Barrett then turned the baby over to Officer M. Carruthers, who, in a shocking twist, became the third culprit in this attempted infanticide. Even Barrett's own mother tried to kill the child he named Davy. All were following the directive of an online guru known as Sampic. We pick up with Barrett and his ex-girlfriend / FBI agent Irene, who are about to get a call from the Branch River Police Chief, Nelson Kessler, with important news about the case. Nelson. Barrett Turner and Irene Van Horten sat in his truck parked in front of the green dumpster. A Wendy's bag rested on the center console between them. Barrett's phone rang. It was Police Chief Nelson Kessler. He put down his hamburger and activated the speakerphone. "Hey, Nelson, what did you find out?" "My officer went to the address you mentioned," Nelson began. "Your whole crew was out there this morning. I'm surprised you weren't." "My crew?" Barrett asked, confused. "The house was on fire." Barrett spoke absently. "That's the house fire the guys left for. I stayed behind because... It doesn't matter why." Irene placed a caring hand on Barrett's thigh. Nelson continued. Now, they put it out in short order, apparently. The living room was largely spared, and that's where we found her, a woman. Cooked a little and covered in ash, but she was intact enough to see what obviously happened to her. What happened to her? From the pictures, it looked like a scene out of a Rick Baker movie. How do you mean, Barrett asked. American Werewolf in London, Rick Baker? Nelson said. You know, the special effects guy. Her body was all torn apart, almost like she exploded. Barrett swallowed hard. Was she pregnant? How should I know? Asked Nelson. You're going to perform an autopsy, right? Honestly, brother, there's not much left to do an autopsy on. She was blown the fuck up. I bet it was a shotgun. Stick a shotty up the cooter and you get that kind of flowering that happens around the abdomen. Irene dropped her mouth open in disgusted contempt. Nelson continued. Keep this between us, yeah? I don't need reporters breathing down my neck for a statement until we find out more. Irene made a cutting motion across her throat. She pulled a notepad out of her pocket and ripped a pen free from her low-cut collar. She wrote, "End the call." Barrett held up a finger as he said, "Do you have any idea who lived in that house?" One of my deputies tracked down the landlord, Nelson said. Looks like it was registered to 4 college students at Branch River Community College. Trisha Vickers? Barrett finished. Yeah, how'd you know? Nelson demanded. She's the one who showed up claiming to be from CPS, Barrett said. Nelson's voice rose. The one who tried to kill the kid? Irene shook her head and mouthed, "End the call." Look, Nelson, I gotta go, said Barrett, as he flashed Irene a pair of furrowed brows. Me too, Nelson said. You still need somebody to come and pick up the baby? No. Barrett read another note scribbled by Irene. I've delivered the baby to CPS. It's now out of my hands. Oh, good, Nelson said, sounding relieved. Call me and we'll plan a gym day. Really? Barrett asked, surprised by the invitation. Really, Barrett, it's been a long time. I look forward to kicking your ass on the squat rack. In your dreams, Barrett said, smiling for the first time all day. Will do. Thanks, Nelson. Oh, one more thing. Does a meteorite tattoo mean anything to you? Meteorite tattoo, he repeated as he considered the question. Can't say that it does. Some of the guys have been talking about a meteor that landed over in Lawton a week or so ago. Barrett looked over at Irene. You mean a meteorite? Why wasn't it in the news? Who knows, Nelson said. Those damn reporters are more often wrong than right. Why should this be any different? I guess, Barrett said. Nelson cleared his throat. Can anyone hear me? No, Barrett lied. Why? He cleared his throat again. Just, don't trust, Irene snatched the phone away and ended the call. What the hell? Barrett blurted. What was that about? Don't trust, what? Eyewitnesses, Irene said. They teach it to us all the time at the Bureau. Witness memories are fallible.
That wench. Look, also, Barrett, you're a bit of a dumbass, buddy. Come on, use your context clues. What could I be the beginning of a word for? Whatever. All right, let's keep going.
Maybe, Barrett said. Why did you want me to end the call? Well, I don't think you should divulge too much to Nelson, she said. He might be involved. Nelson? He repeated at the ridiculous idea. Yeah, Nelson, said Irene. You said this Sandpit guy looks just like him. Maybe he sent those 3 kids to kill the kid, to blame it on you. He may be pissed that you took Carolyn away from him, and maybe he killed her and your son too. Shane, Barrett said with a lump in his throat. My son's name was Shane. No way, he shook his head. Nelson's the chief of police. He would never, right? Also, what a disgusting comment about the shotgun, Irene said. It fits, Barrett said. Fits what? Irene asked. Caleb, the mailman. He said he was delivering mail when he heard a woman scream. He walked in and she burst open, like a water balloon filled with blood. His words. He found Davy alive and cut the umbilical cord and delivered him to the station. Seriously? Irene asked. You heard Nelson. It sounds like it's true. Irene opened the truck door. Let me make a call. I'll see what I can find out. About Nelson, I mean. Are you sure you won't get in any trouble? Barrett asked, even as he was nodding his consent. Let's just say you owe me a favor after this. She added a wink for good measure. I'm willing to bet you have tons of markers. You're just waiting to call in, said Barrett. Irene flashed a coy smile. I'll let you know when yours comes due. Indecision. Irene stepped back into Barrett's truck. All three of your attempted baby killers do indeed attend Branch River Community College. Irene checked her notebook. Mark Carruthers, Tricia Vickers, and Alexander Mickelson, Barrett said. Bingo. They used their real names, Irene said, almost like they wanted to get caught. Barrett put the truck in reverse. Branch River Community College, here we come. Wait. Irene laid a hand on the steering wheel. Barrett paused before hitting the gas. Do you need to get back to Dallas? No, that isn't it, she said. I've taken the day off. I'm all yours. I talked to my colleague who investigates group conspiracies and cults. He knows about your meteor tattoo. Meteorite, Barrett corrected. Irene pulled out her phone and showed Barrett the screen. The bearers of that tattoo are members of an end-of-the-world cult. They call themselves the Sampic Knights. The Sampic Knights? What the... Well, you've heard of the Knights of Columbus? These are the Knights of Sampic. They shortened it to Sampic Knights, and you were right. Sampic is a figurehead who has convinced his followers the world is about to be invaded by, she wiggled her fingers, aliens. Aliens, Baron chortled. You can't be serious. He's a cult leader. My colleague said he's been tracking his influence, which started here in the States about a year ago, and has now spread to Europe, the Middle East, even China and North Korea. A few of these Sampic Knights live pretty close to home. Barrett didn't like her tone. How close? Watch this. All three videos were released this week, but this video I'm about to show you combines all three and includes a message from the star of our hour. It was released earlier today, believe it or not. Irene tapped the phone screen, and the video loaded. Barrett recognized the video as the one his mother had posted to Facebook that very morning. The curly-haired girl blew the marshmallow out and offered it to the camera when Irene hit pause. Irene indicated the girl. Meet Mary Ellison, our water balloon filled with blood. So gross, Barrett uttered. I agree, Irene said, but not as disgusting as Nelson's comment about the shotgun. I knew there was a reason I never liked him. She restarted the video and pointed. That's Tricia Vickers, Barrett said, of the girl in the black bikini. And Mark Carruthers, the one in the shorts, is the cop I punched. And the cameraman must be Alexander Mickelson, Irene said. I'm not surprised they got meteorite tattoos. What do you mean, Barrett said. Watch. Irene hit play. The foursome ran from the clearing through the leafy branches and down the wooded path to the water's edge. Mark splashed the girls and looked skyward. His face fell. A flaming meteorite arched downward through the sky, accompanied by a mighty roar. The fireball landed in the center of the lake amid a hiss of steam and massive waves that cascaded outward in all directions. Mark Carruthers shouted, "Holy shit!" and the three revelers leapt out of the water to join the cameramen as the wall of water crashed ashore, soaking them all. The cameramen wiped droplets off the lens and focused the camera on the rocky waves as a flock of ducks took to the sky. The footage went blurry and came back into focus. When the lens cleared, a speedboat-like wave formed in the center of the lake that rushed toward shore with an alarming speed. What the hell is that? Alexander said behind the camera. The foursome screamed wildly when a lone figure leapt from the water and landed feet first on the shore. Barrett spiked his brows and reared his neck back. What the fuck is that? A naked man standing with the foursome looked human by all accounts, but not quite. His skin had the consistency of a burnt marshmallow. Twin horns jutted from his forehead. His cleft chin bore a cropped beard. He tore after the group of friends, which left them scrambling and screaming back onto the trail. The camera looked back to find the charred man with red eyes running at top speed and steadily gaining. Back in the clearing, the friends gathered near the fire pit. The camera spun in time to catch the strange figure tackle Mary to the ground. Her friend Tricia screamed and tried pulling the creature off Mary, but the alien creature effortlessly tossed her aside. Tricia went tumbling into the grass. She sat up and screamed, "Get off of her!" Alexandra shouted from behind the camera, "Help her!" The other three merely watched as the creature ripped Mary's bikini top and bottom from her. The girl screamed until her voice gave out as the camera showed every second of a horrific sexual assault. The creature stood and cracked his neck. Mary covered her nakedness. Her cheeks glistened with fresh tears. She rolled over into a fetal position as the charred figure turned and confronted her hapless friends. The creature growled like a dog and spoke low in an unintelligible language as it cornered the three others beside the flaming fire pit. It dove for long-haired Tricia and threw her to the ground, then ripped off her bikini. The camera panned up to reveal shaven-haired Mark digging into the plastic bag beside the tent. Mark came away with a bottle of lighter fluid. He held the bottle at arm's length and squirted a clear liquid onto the creature's back as Tricia fought for her life to be freed. "Roll, Tricia," Mark shouted. "Roll!" Tricia cried out with all of her might. "I can't!" Mark reached for a stick Mary had used to blacken her marshmallow. The tip carried with it a tiny flame. He touched the flame to the creature's back, which resulted in a rush of air. The alien fell to earth, and a fiery meteorite became engulfed in flames. He climbed off Tricia, enabling her to roll to safety. Mark squirted more of the liquid. The flames burned with a hellish intensity. The creature screeched in pain as it took one step and then another before falling onto its side. There it twitched as the flames roared and consumed this creature from another world. Mark ran over to help Tricia to her feet. "What the fuck?" Alexandra said behind the camera. What was that?" "I don't know," Mark said. He turned his head. "Where's Mary?" The three rushed back into the woods. They found Mary seated on the lake shore staring blankly at the choppy water. "Are you okay?" Mark asked. "No," Mary said. "No, I'm not." The footage froze on Mary's distraught face. The screen changed. "Here's the second video," Irene said. The footage started with Tricia Vickers sitting on her heels beside a bed in a dimly lit room. Lying on the bed was an obviously pregnant Mary Ellison. Tricia spoke directly into the camera. "2 weeks ago, my friends and I were the unfortunate subjects of a prophecy come true. Sampic, hear us. Your dream has become reality. The alien landed near our camp and raped our friend Mary. Thanks to the fast-thinking action of our friend Mark, we were able to kill the creature before it invaded our homeland. But we were not fast enough. Its progeny lives on. Here is proof." Tricia nodded at the swollen belly of Mary, who turned her tear-stained face away from the camera. "We pledge this sacrifice to Sampic. We are doing our part to make Earth a safe haven for every citizen, man, woman, and child. Hail, Sampic, hail. Mary, are you ready?" The camera went out of focus before Mary's damp cheeks filled the screen. "Do it," she said weakly. "I'm ready." Tricia held up a metal coat hanger that had been unraveled and twisted to form a hooked pole. She leaned over Mary as the camera panned upward toward the popcorn ceiling. The ceiling fan whirled as a shrill scream filled the air. The camera panned down. Tricia gasped as she looked down at the coat hanger in her hand. The reinforced metal had been snapped in half. The hooked end appeared mangled and pockmarked beyond recognition. "It didn't work," Tricia lamented. "The life inside her is too strong. I'm sorry, Mary." Mary placed both hands over her face and began to cry. Irene paused the video and looked at Barrett. "You see what I mean?" Barrett shook her head. "Tricia said the word safe haven. That can't be a coincidence." Irene nodded. "Here's the third video, and it's the most disturbing of the three." "More disturbing than alien rape and a botched alien abortion?" Barrett said, his face pale. "Are you sure you want to see this?" Irene asked. "Just press play," Barrett said. The third video began with the shot of the front door of a single-family home. Tricia Vickers opened the door and entered the darkened interior. Mark Carruthers and the cameraman, presumably Alexander Mickelson, followed quickly. Tricia immediately clapped a hand over her mouth. Off camera, Mark exclaimed, "Oh my God!" The camera panned to the right to show the remains of a body on the couch. The torso looked like an open crater with bits of white bone poking through the bloodied organs and chunks of meat. More crimson portions of human remains stuck to the walls and furniture and graced the blackened screen of a flat-screen television bolted to the wall. "Where's the baby?" Alexander said behind the camera. "Oh no," Tricia said. "This isn't good." The video froze on a bluish-white tube of tissue that extended from a destroyed body at the foot of the couch. At the end was jagged as if haphazardly cut. The image became superimposed with a dark-eyed character with jet-black hair and a wicked smile. Sampic spoke in a gravelly voice. "These brave Sampic Knights have given credence to my vision. 1 year ago, on October 13th to be exact, I declared to the public my prophecy that an alien race would arrive on Earth to eradicate humanity, that every man, woman, and child would be at risk. Not only has my prophecy occurred exactly as I foretold, but, as you've recently witnessed, one of these creatures housed in the meteor has fathered a half-human child, and that child still lives. He is out there, ladies and gentlemen, and he must be stopped at all costs. We must send a message to all extraterrestrial demons that we will not be conquered so easily. Be on the lookout for this evil demon seed. The faithful Sampic Knights you have seen in this video have told me that it, not he, it, has a birthmark over its right eye. Find it, end its life, and save us all. Sampic, over and out." Irene ended the video and put the phone back in her purse. "Did you see its mouth?" Barrett said. "What?" Irene asked. "Play that again. That last part with Sampic." Irene produced the phone, rewound the video to the end, and hit play. "Look at his lips are moving over his teeth," Barrett said, pointing at the screen. "Something's off. He's not real. He's AI." Irene stared at the screen. "Are you sure? It might just be a frame rate issue." "Sampic is definitely a real person, at least according to my colleague." She stopped the video and put the phone away. "These videos have gone viral all over the world, and you should see the comments. The Sampic Knights are convinced that this is only the beginning. More aliens are going to land, rape, and pillage, and the world is going to end." Barrett looked into the back seat. Davy cooed and smiled up at him. "I don't see it," he said. "He looks like a normal baby. But the videos and the red eyes, I can't believe I'm saying this, but even if this is all real, that Davy is half alien or whatever, doesn't change the fact that he's a child. He needs to be protected. I lost my son, Shane, recently, and, well, I've grown attached to the little guy. I don't care what Sampic says. I'm going to keep Davy safe." "You're a good man, Barrett Turner," Irene said. "I feel the same way. We can keep Davy safe together." She leaned in and gave Barrett a tight hug. Barrett, overcome with emotion, kissed her on the cheek and then pulled away quickly. "You're wet," he said. He looked down at the damp spot on Irene's shirt, right over her right breast. "Huh?" Irene looked down at herself and bashfully pulled her shirt away. "Oh, I must have spilled my drink." She touched her cheek where Barrett had grazed her with his lips. "That was nice." "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be." Irene leaned in and kissed him on the lips. "It's really good to see you again." Barrett nodded. "This all feels so inappropriate given what just happened with my family and what we just watched, but it's good to see you too." "So what now?" "Well," she said, "my colleague told me that 1 day a year, all Sampic Knights gather at the designated meeting places around the world during a day that seems they all deem Sampic Day. They use their psychic energy to keep the aliens at bay, apparently. All the suicides have occurred on October 13th. The sacrifices they feel are necessary to keep the rest of humanity safe, as crazy as that may seem. Turns out that day is tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Barrett said. October 13th. That's my mother's birthday. Lucky her, Irene said. Given that the date is tomorrow, and that this video with Sampic was released earlier today, do you know where I suspect our Sampic Knights are headed right now? The lake, Barrick said with certainty, where the meteorite fell. Yep, Irene said. There's something else. While Sampic is a worldly figure, he clumsily left a breadcrumb trail that led right here to Branch River. Branch River? Barrett said. What are the odds of the... Wait, Nelson! Barrett snapped his fingers. It makes sense. The chief of police would cover up a meteorite landing, and Nelson was always a cocky bastard. That son of a bitch would be grandiose enough to lead a cult that would lead to suicides around the world. He always did have a sort of mean streak. Irene cocked her head as she listened. I would need proof before I can call in a task force. Confronting him at the police station is risky. Do you know where he lives? Yes, Barrett said. But wait, some things don't make sense. Like what? She asked. Everything you said could feasibly explain it. Mary, Barrett said with a slow shake of his head. She gave birth to Davy, and according to the mail carrier Caleb, she burst. But this morning, my station was sent out to the house because of a fire. Who started the fire? Oh, shit. What? Irene exclaimed excitedly. Caleb had a bandage on his arm. He must have started the fire. Are you sure you don't work for the FBI? Irene said with a grin. It makes sense, said Barrett, who gave his head a little shake. But wait, maybe the kids burned down their own house with the remains of their friend inside to kill what they felt was the baby that threatened the earth. And maybe Caleb saved Davy and got burned in the process. But why wouldn't he mention the fire if that was the case? Irene plucked free her notebook and pen. I'm going to write this down. You just keep going. Barrett's mind spun. Or did Nelson start the fire to try and kill the kid, not knowing that Caleb had already taken Davy to the station? Good theories, Irene said. So we have 3 Sampic Knights, who are obviously the culprits behind the attempted infanticide. But who is leading them? Barrett shrugged. Excellent question. Irene closed her notebook and held it in her lap. I don't know either, but we're going to find out. In the meantime, maybe we should hole up in a hotel, away from prying eyes. You should probably take a break from work and avoid your home, to keep Davy safe. We'll all 3 stay together until we resolve this case and the coast is clear. Barrett looked at Davy and shifted in his seat. What if he really is an alien? Irene shrugged. We'll deal with that when it comes. Meanwhile, let's unmask the instigator behind the entire thing. Cut the head off a snake, if you will, so the rest of the body dies. All right, Jack, we've reached the deliberation.
Alrighty.
And, much like the two of them just talked about, the question posed to us is, who is Sampic?
Who is Sampic?
So Barrett Turner needs our help like few others have. The elusive figurehead Sampic and his loyal Sampic Knights are determined to kill baby Davy if Barrett can't stop the insanity. So here's a list of the people that Barrett's interacted with today.
All right.
So we have Nelson Kessler, current police chief and former best friend.
Okay.
Betty Lou Turner, Barrett's mother and social media fanatic.
Okay.
Irene Van Horten, current FBI agent and crazy ex-girlfriend.
Insane.
And Caleb Hampstead, the mail carrier who rescued Davy after his mother died.
Interesting.
Okay, you want the facts?
Give them to me straight.
Okay, there's quite a few of them.
All right.
Based on the video evidence, an alien landed in Branch River and raped poor Mary, who weeks later gave birth to Davy.
Yes.
She died explosively in childbirth 2 days prior.
Poor woman.
And her house was burnt down this morning.
Poor woman.
Caleb saved Davy and brought him home.
Yes, he did.
His wife didn't want the baby, so he purchased a baby blanket and took him swaddled to the firehouse.
Yep.
Barrett tried to turn Davy over to authorities, but each time, one of the Sampic Knights who fought the alien intervened, determined to kill Davy.
But not that determined. And we'll talk about that.
Okay. Sampic was an international sensation calling for a unified front to make the Earth into a safe haven. Some of his followers committed suicide. He was now calling for them to kill the baby with the birthmark over his eye.
Okay.
Police Chief Nelson Kessler physically looks like Sampic, with his dark hair and eyes. Irene suspects he may be involved with everything going on. He's known to be grandiose with a mean streak, according to Barrett, his former friend.
Yeah.
Betty Lou was uploading Sampic videos at her home and tried to show them to Barrett, but he wouldn't watch.
Uploading or downloading?
It says uploading.
Interesting.
Barrett said Betty Lou was forgetting things, like how she called him with a cardiac attack on the day his wife and son died.
Yeah.
She denied she called him, but noted the accident happened the same day as the meteor.
Yeah.
FBI agent Irene Van Horten doesn't trust Nelson Kessler. She has copies of the videos and has traced the IP to a local computer. She is eager to restart a relationship with Barrett.
Nerd.
Caleb has a burned arm that he claims was from a grilling accident, but Barrett isn't so sure. So, who is behind Sampic and the Sampic Knights' rampant attempted infanticide?
All right, let's look at the Force 2 Spocks. Caleb could do a lot of things, but he clearly is not the mastermind. You know, he's not Sampic. He wouldn't try to let the baby live according to like his prerogative, and that is exactly what Caleb did. So I do not think Caleb is Sam P. Claus.
Okay, so we are coloring him red.
There are some strange things about the mother. What's her name? Something Lou.
Betty Lou Turner.
Betty Lou who?
BLT.
The BLT. So this bacon lover sandwich is a little odd. I'll admit. Now, I think there's a typo. I don't think it should have been uploaded, because if she uploaded those videos, then she would have been the one to put them on the internet herself. Don't look at me like that.
It says uploaded.
Uh-huh. And who wrote that? Did you write it? Did Jason write it? Who wrote that?
I write the deliberation.
Did Sampic write it?
I write the deliberations, but then the authors go over and verify everything. So I wrote uploaded, and he did not change it.
I'm gonna look, if it's Betty Lou Who and that is the big hint, consider me had, because I'm not gonna go by it. I'm gonna ignore it.
So you're coloring her red?
I'm coloring her red. I don't think Betty did it. I think if Betty had done it, look, if these people, and this is what I was getting at earlier, if these people really thought this was like the destroyer of the planet, why wouldn't they try harder? They didn't try that hard. Personally, if I thought I had the demon baby in my arms, I wouldn't bother walking all the way upstairs. It's got a pretty fragile neck.
Oh
you can do it in the stairway.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying. Not to mention, he always gets away. He grabs the baby and he leaves. Guess what? 3 people, right?
Yeah.
Betty Lou Who.
And the three 20-year-olds.
So a total of 4 people.
4 people have tried to kill the baby.
Killed it. And they all just like watch him leave, and it was like, oh no, he's gone. Try harder, asshat.
I don't think you're supposed to be cheering for the attempted infanticiders.
I'm just saying that if that's what you really believed, you would try a little freaking harder.
So where are you going with this, though? Because those people weren't on our list of suspects.
It's just thoughts I had.
They're followers.
Anyway,
Okay.
it's just things that were in my brain.
Okay. So you have Nelson, the police chief, and Irene, the FBI agent / ex-girlfriend.
Between the two, look, the only real evidence that we have against Nelson is that, according to a picture, he kind of looks like Sampic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kind of. Now, that seems like a pretty obvious clue, which is too obvious for me, darn it, okay? You can't give it away that easy. You know, if right off the bat we're like, that guy is the killer, and he looks like, a lot like, this other guy. Interesting, but we don't know for sure. No, that can't be it. And if it is it, darn you, Jason. All right.
So you're calling him red because it's too obvious.
It's too obvious.
Which leaves you with Irene Van Horten.
Iranian Van Horten, she's a little funky monkey in my mind for the specific reason of she shows up and we know she's a little odd, you know, from her past. Also, Barrett, buddy, why are you making out with her? Your wife died.
Didn't make out. He just gave her a little peck on the cheek.
For what? A fun day out?
I think he was emotionally overwrought.
Maybe. It doesn't mean you make out with your psycho FBI agent ex-girlfriend.
You're being hard on Barrett here.
I am being a little hard on Barrett here. Also, no, it's all wrong. I disagree with it.
Okay.
I think Irene has to be the one. She's in the perfect situation to orchestrate something big right now, to get Barrett and the baby where they need to be. Nelson really isn't in that position. He's trying, but you notice he didn't try that hard. He said that he gave up the baby, and that was that. He said he gave the baby to CPS, and Nelson's like, cool, good, it's out of your hands. Bye-bye now. Didn't care.
You're right. He did do that.
So I think, if he had cared, if it was something he was genuinely concerned about, he would have put more effort into, figuring out who picked it up, who picked up the baby, and all that jazz. But no, he didn't. So I think it's most likely to be Irene.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with Betty, why she's having calls she can't remember, why she's having these weird, memory bouts, and why she decided she wanted to kill this baby. Well, we know why she wanted to kill the baby, but I don't think Betty has enough foresight or enough knowledge. She seems like a pretty deranged old woman. I don't think she's masterminding, putting AI faces on the internet.
Okay.
Because clearly whatever that face is, it's not the actual person.
Right.
You wouldn't want your real identity out there. You have to protect yourself, and I don't think Betty is capable of doing that. So, yes, Irene.
Okay.
Great song by the Clarks. Is that who it's by?
I want to remind everybody that Mysteries to Die For remains ad-free in our 8th season. Today's author is Jason Little. He wrote Red Hand Dripping Blood Red for us last season, which was our first horror subgenre. Really awesome story. Check out his backlist on his website, Jason Little Writes. The link is in the show notes. Support him and help him continue along his writerly path here. With that, we'll pick up the story. I will give you all just a little heads up that there are 4 other chapters or parts to this. Usually after deliberation, we sort of get right to the end. This one has a little bit more to go. We will start with grief. Barrett parked the truck in the parking lot of the Sacred Heart Catholic Church. The rest of the lot was empty, being that it was after hours. Barrett looked over at Irene, who fed Davy with a bottle they'd mixed with formula after stopping at Walmart. Nelson lives down the street, Barrett said. What are you thinking? He looked to his left out the driver's side window, where he could just make out the corner of Nelson's house. Ow! Irene shouted. She jerked her hand back and flashed Barrett a pair of white eyes. The nipple on the bottle was mangled beyond repair. Milk seeped out the multiple holes onto the center console. Irene dropped the half-full bottle into the plastic grocery bag between her feet. Davy began to cry. Neither adult sought to console the child. What do I do? Irene asked Barrett, the way a ventriloquist might, without moving her lips. He did that? Barrett said, bewildered. Who else? Give him to me, Barrett said. Irene handed the child over. The moment his fingers touched Davy under both armpits, the infant calmed down. He likes you, Irene said. That's a good thing. Barrett cradled Davy and whispered to Irene, What now? The infant closed his eyes and audibly slept. Irene softly muttered her response. According to my colleague, Sampic made a splash on the scene internationally with the Simple blog. That was a year and a half ago. Can you believe people killed themselves because of a blogger? A few months ago, he started posting videos, which increased his popularity immensely. I'm betting that Nelson's computer will show the proof that he's behind the Sampic phenomenon, if indeed he is. And if not, then we can at least cross him out as a suspect behind these attempted infanticides and go on to the bandaged mailman. Barrett shook his head. Are you suggesting we break into the home of the Branch River Chief of Police? She shrugged. Something like that. He looked down to the sleeping baby. What about Davy? Bring him with, Irene said. We can't trust him with anyone else right now. And what if Nelson tries to kill him? Then I'll finally have an excuse to use my little friend. Irene lifted her shirt to reveal the pistol tucked discreetly against her belly. Barrett followed Irene through Nelson's yard and around the side of his house to his back door. He held the dozing Davy close to his chest. Irene stepped behind the door and gave a quick look around before producing a leather satchel from her pocket. She plucked free a couple of metal spikes and a moment later had the door open. "Like butter," she said as she pushed her way inside. Barrett made sure Davy's mouth was positioned away from his shoulder as he ducked through the doorway and shut the door behind him. Irene slipped down the hall and entered the room on the right. Barrett found himself standing in what happened to be Nelson's office. Paperwork littered the desk. Plaques on the wall told the story of Nelson's many accomplishments. "How did you know which room to check first?" Barrett said. "Good guess." Irene sat down on the computer and wiggled the mouse. The monitor flashed to life. "Well, shit." Barrett looked over her shoulder. He read the email aloud. "Sampic Day is upon us. Gather at the spot where the creature landed. Together, we will culminate our psychic energy to deter any other alien invaders to our precious planet. Sampic out." Barrett clicked his teeth. "You were right. Nelson is Sampic." "It was the only thing that made sense," Irene said, "and it sounds like he's about to make his first in-person introduction to his devoted lackeys." "How do you figure?" Barrett wondered. Irene repeated the words in the email. "We will accumulate our energy. You and I need to get to the lake in case those kids follow suit from the other crazies and off themselves. We'll be needing their testimony to take Nelson down." Davy jerked awake in Barrett's arms and burst into tears. "Shit," Barrett said. "I think he needs to be changed." Irene stood up from the chair. "I'll change him in the truck," with caution. "Come on, let's go." Barrett stood resolutely. "I want to stop at Mama's house first." "No time," Irene said. "We may already be too late." "It'll only take a minute." "Barrett," Irene said. "I'm not flexible on this," argued Barrett. "It'll be a quick pit stop. She may be taken up in all of this, especially if she does have dementia." Irene laid a hand on Barrett's arm. "Fine, I understand." Barrett carried Davy through the back door of Betty Lou's house and down the hall. The back bedroom was ajar. Barrett threw it open and shouted, "Mama!" As Barrett rushed forward into the room, Irene stepped up behind him with her gun drawn. "What's wrong?" She put her gun away as Barrett handed Davy over and knelt on the floor. Beside him, lying on her back, was Betty Lou. She was white-faced with blue lips. Barrett pressed 2 fingers to the side of his mother's neck. "She's gone." His words culminated in an uncontrollable sob. "Gone?" Irene said. Barrett, I'm so sorry. She must have had a cardiac attack." Barrett furrowed his brows. He looked up at Irene holding Davy and back down at the deceased body of the woman who raised him. "Come on," Irene whispered. She placed a loving hand on Barrett's shoulder. "Let's go get Nelson." Barrett did not stand. He kept his eyes trained on his mother's peaceful expression. Tomorrow was her birthday. I didn't even buy her a gift. "Hey," Irene said, "stop that. She's in a better place, and if she did have dementia, she's not suffering anymore. Take solace in that. And the fact that some good can come of all this. We have to get to the lake before Nelson gets away." "I can't just leave her like this," Barrett said, wiping away a tear. "I'll call it in. Don't worry," Irene said. "I'll make sure she's well taken care of. Come on." "I don't like this," Barrett said as he stood up. "She'll be taken care of," Irene repeated. "No," Barrett said. He took hold of Davy and hugged him close. "I'm not putting Davy in harm's way. There will not be 2 deaths today if I can help it." "We can't leave him alone," Irene said. "We won't have to," Barrett said. He took out his cell phone and headed out of the room while swiping another tear from his already damp cheeks. Irene called after him, "Who are you calling?" Barrett looked over his shoulder and said, "Someone I can trust," before he stepped into the hall. Handover. Barrett and Irene waited for Travis to pull his bright green Dodge Ram into the parking spot beside them. They had chosen to rest stop at the edge of a Texas-Oklahoma border and had chosen well. Few others lingered around the quiet visitor center. Travis removed his sunglasses and hung them on his collar. "What's going on?" he asked. He gave a start when Barrett handed Davy over. Travis switched the baby from one arm to the other when Barrett snatched his arm and peered at the skin on the inside of his wrist. "What the hell, man?" Travis said as he yanked his arm back. "Just checking," Barrett said. "Follow behind us. At the first sign of trouble, turn around and take Davy to the firehouse. I'll pick him up when I can." "Dude, what is going on?" Travis said. "What's this all about? Are you in trouble?" Barrett shook his head. "It's a long story, one I'd rather discuss over a beer once this is all over and done with." He turned to Irene and said, "You drive, I understand," Irene said. She wasted no time sliding into the driver's seat. Barrett closed his eyes and fought off tears as memory of his mother flooded through his mind. He checked the side mirror and saw that Travis was speaking while looking over at the passenger seat. Barrett smiled, knowing that Davy was in good hands. Irene patted Barrett's thigh. "While you were talking to your coworker, I was speaking with my colleague in Dallas. Based on the background information from the video, he determined the campground is at Lawtonka Lake in Lawton, Oklahoma." "Nelson did say the meteorite fell in Lawton," Barrett said. Irene nodded. "We'll be there in half an hour." She adjusted the rearview mirror. "Are you sure you trust this guy?" "I do with my life every day. Or I did, before I stopped going out on calls." He turned to Irene. "I'm sorry if I'm implied that I don't trust you back at my mom's house." "No," Irene said, "I get it. You've been through a lot. I just wanted to say thank you for everything. You've really proven to be a great friend, and I'm glad, of all people, you were the one who was with me when I found Mama the way I did." Irene caressed Barrett's cheek. "I love you, Barrett Turner, and I'll never stop loving you." Thank you," Barrett said. He opened his mouth to say more, but he could not find words.
Run, dude. Also, you found a typo.
I did find a typo. You watching me find a typo?
Oh, I watch you most of the time I read it because I can't comprehend the words you say, so I read it first, and then you say it, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
How can you play the piano, read, and listen at the same time?
Well, if you listen to my piano, you'll realize when I'm reading and when I'm focusing on playing. You're like, oh, he just played the wrong note like 8 times. He didn't notice. I'm kidding. Normally I'm better than that, but still.
I must be listening to the piano the way you're listening to me read.
I think so.
Because I don't hear any of those. I just hear the rhythm.
Well, anyway, there's a little clue in there, by the way, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. If you remember from last episode, one specific phrase that pointed to who the killer is. So that's pretty cool, right? I figured it out, darn it.
Let's just continue reading.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I'm cool and I saw it. I just wanted you to know that I'm totally aware of everything that's happening. I was really just showing off myself. I wasn't really, trying to inform anyone of anything. I'm just good at what I do, guys. I don't know what to tell you. All right, I'll shut up. We'll find a new chord progression.
Irene pulled up to the grassy clearing and laid a hand on Barrett's leg. They both stared at the orange tent erected in the center of the field beside the flaming fire pit. At midnight, a black Toyota Camry was parked beside the black and white police cruiser. "Nelson's here." Irene drew her pistol and racked the slide. "Stay close to me." Barrett checked behind him. Travis pulled his car in behind Barrett's truck and gave the thumbs up with Davy on his lap. "Let's go," Barrett said. He wondered if he should warn Travis about Davy, but Irene pulled him by his arm toward the orange tent. Barrett looked over his shoulder as he was led through the trees and onto the dirt path. All right. Takedown. Barrett and Irene followed the trail down to the lake. "Shit, we're too late," Barrett said. The 3 bodies laying on their sides at the lake's edge clearly belonged to Davy's attackers. Barrett recognized Tricia Vickers with her long brown hair and a single bullet hole in the side of her head. Mark Carruthers with his shaved head bore a similar bullet wound. Alexander Mickelson had the video camera in one hand and a gleaming silver pistol in the other. His mangled jaw was proof the boy had decided to eat his bullet instead. "Where's Nelson?" Barrett said to Irene as he surveyed the surroundings. Irene shouted, "Barrett, look out!" She drew her pistol and pointed the barrel in the direction of the lake. Barrett spun at the sound of splashing water behind him and then froze in place. Stepping free from the lake was a nude man with charred skin the consistency of burnt marshmallow. His twin horns glistened in the dying light of day. With red eyes, he scowled over his shortly cropped beard. Barrett stepped back and tripped over a log. He landed firmly on his backside as he shouted at Irene, "Shoot it! Shoot it!" The creature spoke in a guttural language as he reached up and ripped off his face. "Caleb?" Barrett asked in disbelief. Irene shouted, "Surprise!" One by one, each of the 3 Branch River College students stood up out of the sand. One by one, they ripped off the bloody prosthetics that gave the impression that they had been shot with a .45 caliber pistol round. "What is this?" Barrett said, getting shakily to his feet. "Are you surprised?" Irene asked. Her face lit up with delight. Barrett looked at the gloomy faces of Tricia, Mark, and Alexander. Caleb's eyes trailed to the sand at his feet as he slowly covered himself up. Barrett turned and ran through the branches to the trail beyond. "Barrett!" Irene called after him. "Barrett, wait up!" Barrett ran to Travis's car. Travis shut off the engine and stepped out. He handed Davy over. Barrett smoothed the smudging of hair on the infant's head and hugged him close. "Barrett!" Irene said from behind. Barrett spun and pointed. "Don't come any closer." "Barrett, it's me, Irene. It was only a prank." "What on earth do you mean it was a prank?" Barrett said. A shadow rose up in the back window of the police cruiser. The car door opened, and Police Chief Nelson Kessler stepped out. Barrett had not seen his former friend in years, and was once more amazed at the resemblance of Sampic from the video. Nelson held up his hands. "I can explain." Irene shook her head. "Nelson, you're not needed here. Go home. You're dismissed. I've got this under control." "No, Irene," Nelson snapped. "I'm not doing this anymore. I refuse to be shaken down any longer. I'm ready to come clean." "Don't listen to it, Barrett," Irene said sternly. Nelson spoke calmly. "Barrett, I'm sorry about everything. I tried to confess this morning when you first called, but I'm ready to tell you everything now." Barrett looked from Irene to Nelson to Travis, Tricia, Alexandra, and Mark before he glanced over at the modest Caleb emerging from the trail. Nelson approached Barrett with both palms exposed. Around a year ago, Irene came to town to investigate a cult. Irene pointed her pistol at the long-faced police captain. "Nelson, no!" "Shut up, Irene," Nelson shouted. He directed his next words to Barrett. "She came here investigating an end-of-the-world cult called the Sampic Knights," Barrett said. Nelson nodded. "Yes, I noticed her at the Handlebar and Grill, and, well, one thing led to another, and we slept together." Barrett looked at Irene, who fought hard not to interrupt. Nelson continued, "I was pissed about you stealing Carolyn from me." Barrett started to inject, but Nelson jutted his palms in the air between them. "Let me finish. I was pissed, and since you and Irene used to date, I wanted to get back at you. We slept together, and she ended up pregnant." Barrett looked down at Davy as he bounced the infant in his arms. "The baby's mine," Nelson said, "but I didn't want it. I remember you splitting with Irene because she was nuts. She even tried to kill herself when you broke up. I had a lapse in judgment, and, well, why would I want a baby with a nut job?" "I'm not a nut job, you dick," Irene said. "Shut up, crazy bitch," Barrett said. "Let him finish." "She's nuttier than a Snickers bar," Nelson said, "and I wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. Call me a bastard, but it's the truth. But she had me, balls to the walls. She did some investigating and found out I embezzled money from my department. Over $100,000 over 10 years. With the evidence she had on me, I gave in." Barrett shook his head. "What does this have anything to do with me? What about the meteorite?" "I'm getting to that." Nelson looked over at the downtrodden faces of the 3 deceased Sampic Knights raised from the dead. Tricia, Mark, and Alexander, along with Mary Ellison, were caught selling ecstasy and weed online via the dark web. Caleb, our resident mailman, made sure the postal inspector never caught wind of their dealings. He'd make the drop-offs, and they all took home a king's ransom. "Stop this," Irene demanded. Nelson shouted back, "You've got no leverage over me this time, Irene. We're all willing to do the time necessary for our crimes. Anything is better than you stringing this good man along and endangering the life of this poor child." Tricia Vickers tossed her long brown hair over her shoulder. She stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, Barrett. Irene found out that we're theater kids. We make indie horror films, and she used that to play a trick on you. She called it trauma bonding. A nightmare scenario would bond the three of you together. She was hoping you'd fall back in love with her and love her baby in turn, since you recently lost a child of your own." Tricia looked disgustedly at Irene. "We told her it wouldn't work." "It did work," Irene said, as she approached Barrett with her arms extended. "I love you." "Stay back." Barrett eyed the gun in her hand, which remained at waist level. "I did the special effects," Tricia said. "The creature's skin, the bullet wounds, Mary's bump, that was all me." "I did the digital effects," Mark said as he rummed a hand over his shaved head. "The meteor was all AI." "Meteorite," said a weary Barrett. "And I filmed everything," Alexandra said. "Mary, my girlfriend, wrote the script. Mary, why don't you come out here?" The orange tent rustled. The zipper on the front flap came up and a curly-haired girl emerged, her face drenched with sweat. "Damn it, it's hot in there." "What is this?" Irene demanded. Caleb stepped forward and shouted at Irene, "You thought I'd kill her. Why would I kill anyone for you, you crazy broad?" To Barrett, he hollered, "She gave me a shotgun and expected me to stick it up her stuff and blow her to smithereens." Tricia said proudly, "The burst body was also my handiwork." You do good work," Barrett said. "I believed everything, like an idiot." He turned to Nelson. "You tried to tip me off this afternoon." He looked to Irene but directed his words at Nelson. "Don't trust an eyewitness? You were trying to tell me not to trust Irene." "I tried," Nelson said. "She wanted Mary dead to sell the lie. Some prank, huh?" Barrett walked over to Travis and handed Davy over. He approached Irene, gripped her collar, and looked down at her shirt. "You didn't spill your drink. Your chest was wet because you're lactating." "So what?" Irene said. "Yes, it's all true, and yes, it's breast milk, and I look great after giving birth, you have to admit." Barrett scoffed. He still had a hold of her shirt. He plunged his hand into Irene's pocket and came up with a small plastic case. He unscrewed one end and then shook his head. "Red contact lenses?" He stole an icy look at Irene. "For a baby?" Irene cocked her head and spiked her eyebrows. "Davy and I practiced that for a week. He can tolerate them pretty well." Tricia shook her head. "I told her that was a bad idea, but I have no excuse for providing the props." Barrett jutted his hand into Irene's other pocket. He came up with a pair of needle-nosed pliers. "You mangled the nipple on the bottle," he said with a shake of his head. He scowled at Irene. "You haven't changed. You're still unhinged and self-centered." He turned to Nelson. "So you're not Sampic?" Nelson shook his head. "No, I'm guilty of fraud and dereliction of duty. I backed up traffic on the highway that allowed the death of your family, and I gave Mark a uniform and police car, allowing him to pose as an officer of the law. But I'm not Sampic." He slipped out his cell phone out of his pocket, pressed a button on the console, and placed the device to his ear. "Come on in," he said. "It's time." Nelson pointed over Barrett's shoulder. Barrett looked behind him. A red and white ambulance with emergency lights off approached slowly and pulled to a stop. The two uniformed EMTs in the cab stared blankly at him from the darkened interior. The passenger got out, walked to the back, opened the rear doors, and stepped aside. "Mama?" Barrett said. "Hi, Barrett," said Betty Lou. "But we're dead?" Betty Lou said with pale face and blue lips. She ripped the flesh-colored prosthetic from the side of her neck. "You can't feel a pulse through this thing. Worked like a charm, Tricia. Thank you." Barrett's eyes blinked rapidly. But why?" Betty Lou said, "Because Irene poisoned my iced tea. Nelson called and told me everything after you left. She wanted you all to herself." Barrett turned to Irene. The FBI agent and former girlfriend of Barrett's rolled her eyes. "I don't know what she's talking about." "Betty Lou, it's me." "And now I know it was you," Betty Lou responded. "What do you mean?" Irene asked. Betty Lou spoke calmly. She called you, Barrett, pretending to be me that day. She said I must have had a cardiac attack, Barrett said. He spun on Irene. Of course. It's true, Nelson said. Irene called Carolyn that day too, pretending to be her mother. That's why your wife and son were racing to Dallas. He continued. Irene blackmailed me and made me back up traffic at that very junction where your family crashed their SUV. Others were injured, but Carolyn and Shane, well, in case it's not obvious, Irene cut Carolyn's brakes. Barrett glared at Irene. How could you? Caleb pointed and shouted, She's crazy. I got burned during the rape scene. That wasn't fake. It was real fire. Now I have scars for life, he said as he held up his bandaged arm. And she made me do all of this naked. Barrett said to Irene, So you killed Carolyn and my son? Of course not, Irene said. This is crazy. I did, Barrett, Caleb said. He covered his face with his hands. She made me cut the brakes. This isn't crazy, you nut job, he shouted at Irene. You're crazy. Barrett was speechless. He said to Irene, You masterminded everything, so none of this could be tied back to you? Caleb shouted, She promised all of our crimes would be forgotten. I never expected anyone to get killed. Don't worry, Nelson said. No one did. Caleb the mailman, Barrett the fireman, and Irene the insane FBI agent all spoke in unison. What? Barrett spun when he caught movement in his peripheral vision. Two figures ducked out of the orange tent flap. Carolyn? Barrett shouted, and then broke into a sob. Shane? Both mother and son ran at Barrett and enveloped him in a tight hug. What is this? Irene demanded. What is going on? Nelson told Barrett, I falsely reported their deaths to the media. I'll have to issue a retraction. The feds were on board if it meant catching Irene in a confession. She also started the fire at that rental house. I did it all for you, Barrett, Irene confessed. Nelson added, She's been watching you and noticed you weren't going out on calls. Of course, you were distraught over your family. She knew it was the perfect opportunity to drop the kid on your doorstep and set the fire, leaving you alone with the supposedly alien baby. Barrett struggled to find words, and he stared into his wife's face and uttered, I can't believe you're still alive. Carolyn wiped away a tear. She smiled and said, We were banged up from the accident, but unhurt. You were right about the Nissan having such a high safety rating. Nelson hid us away in a safe house. He kept us safe. It was the least I could do, Nelson said, for old time's sake. Thank you, Barrett told Nelson. I don't know how to thank you. Barrett gave Carolyn a long, passionate kiss. Gross, the young Shane said with a grimace. Barrett laughed. He bent down and hugged his son so tightly the boy groaned, Daddy, I can't breathe. When Barrett righted himself, never letting go of his family, he said to Irene, So you were Sampic all along. I'm Sampic, Barrett, Betty Lou said. Barrett spun to face his mother. Mama, he gasped. You? Betty Lou nodded. A little over a year ago, I had a dream about aliens coming to the Earth. I started writing like you suggested. I started a blog, and it caught on. People killed themselves, and yet I kept going. A few months ago, I got an anonymous message from one of my followers, one of my Sampic Knights. The message from someone called Sunflower Gold taught me how to create an AI video and gave me the template. They said it would make my videos go viral. Now I know it was Irene. Well, she was right. That's right, said Nelson. Irene came to Branch River to investigate Sampic. When she discovered it was your mother, this was her chance to get you back. She concocted the whole thing to enamor you with her baby and create the perfect family. Dropping his eyes to the ground, Nelson added, She held all our crimes over our heads to make it happen. Mark raised his hand. So in addition to computer effects, I'm also somewhat of a hacker. Irene made me wipe your mom's computer clean, and all the evidence was transferred to Nelson's computer, pinning everything on him. Nelson nodded. She figured if I went down for all this, she would never have to explain who fathered her baby. She wanted you to play that part. Barrett turned to Irene. I thought it was strange you knew exactly where to go in Nelson's house. Nelson huffed. She never gave me back my key. Barrett rounded on Irene. And here I thought you picked that lock. Irene shrugged, her cheeks growing red. Barrett stepped up to his mother. Mama, he said, you're Sam Pick? Betty Lou nodded. I thought for sure you of all people would figure it out. My nickname. To the group gathered, she explained. My initials, BLT, translated to bacon when I was a short fat thing. In college, they called me Samich and then Sammy, and somewhere along the line it became Sammy Pickleson, Barrett groaned. Of course, Sampick. And tomorrow, Betty Lou said, what is the date? Barrett smacked his forehead. October 13th, your birthday. Sampick Day is on my birthday, Betty Lou said. You never did care about me. Oh, don't start, Mama. I'm sorry, Barrett, Nelson said. We all are. Irene raised her gun. You're all going to pay for double-crossing me. We'll pay, but not by your hand, Nelson said. He put his fingers to his mouth and let loose a shrill whistle. From the trees emerged both uniformed police officers and FBI agents dressed in khakis and blues. The Branch River Three were arrested, along with Caleb. Nelson was taken into custody by the feds. Irene shouted profanities as she, too, was dragged away. Travis walked over and tapped Barrett on the shoulder. Will someone please tell me what the hell is going on? Barrett hoisted Davy in his arms. I got my family back. I see that, Travis said. But I thought he said to Carolyn, I thought you? I'll explain everything, Barrett said. But first, he turned to Betty Lou. You need to convince your followers that none of this is real. Davy is in danger until you do. I am so sorry, Barrett, Betty Lou said. Irene made me believe my dream had come true. She sent me those videos and told me in anonymous messages about the birthmark. I'll do my best. What now? Now, Carolyn said, we're going to go home and heal. What about him? Barrett said of the child in his arms. Others may find it strange, Carolyn said, but I think we should adopt him. The doctor said I can't have any more children and, well, he would only go into foster care. My conscience wouldn't allow that. Barrett said, you're okay with raising Irene, my ex's baby? Carolyn shrugged. Again, others may find it weird, but, well, it's my ex's baby too. Are you okay with that? Barrett smiled and hugged his wife, being careful not to crush little Davy in the process. I'd grown rather attached to him. He gave his wife another kiss. And that's why I love you. I'm so glad you're okay. Me too, Carolyn said. Let's get Davy home. He's had a long day. We've all had a long day. Shane grumbled. He's not getting my room. Don't worry, Barrett laughed. We'll fix up the spare room. Not like Mama comes over much anyway. Well, I have to now, Betty Lou said. She caressed Davy's cheek. I can't believe I tried to hurt this sweet baby. You were taken in by that nightmare of a woman, Barrett said. We all were. He turned to his co-worker and trusted friend. To answer your question, Travis, it looks like we're going to adopt this little one. And then we're taking a little trip. I'm going to take you and the guys up on the offer. We'll need a couple more tickets, but what do you say? Carolyn, Shane, Mama? You want to go to Rome? Rome, Betty Lou said. I've always wanted to go to Rome. I thought you hate planes, Barrett said. I do. But it's Rome, Betty Lou quipped. Safe. At 30,000 feet, Barrett looked over at his loving wife, Carolyn. He smiled at her sleeping soundly with little Davy parked in her lap. His boy Shane in the window seat kept taking pictures with his tablet at the billowing white clouds outside. On Barrett's other side, Betty Lou's fingers rapped loudly against the keys of her laptop. Her fingers stilled before she nodded and closed the lid. Sampick is set to make his final transmission the moment we land, she said. On Sampick Day, of all days. My birthday. Happy birthday, Mom, Barrett said. I hope you'll accept this trip as your present. Didn't your firefighter friends buy the tickets? Barrett rolled his eyes. That's neither here nor there. Thank you for getting that done. It is done, Betty Lou said. All will be laid bare. Every Sampick night from all corners of the earth will finally know that this was a horrible mistake. I can't believe I had so many followers, and that so many killed themselves. All those lives taken. She looked at Barrett. I'm responsible for their suicides, aren't I? Barrett shook his head. What people do is not your fault. You said it yourself. He looked behind him at the stewardess coming down the aisle with the drink tray. Why don't you purchase the in-flight Wi-Fi package, he said. Release your final transmission now. Why wait? Let's get this over with. Betty Lou patted Barrett's leg. Because it's an added expense. I want all the money I can muster from my Social Security payment for the shops in Rome. What's the rush? We're up in the sky. Davy's safe with us here. Take a chill pill and relax. The stewardess arrived at their slide. I'll have coffee, Betty Lou said. Black. No iced tea? Barrett asked. Betty Lou pursed her lips. I don't think I'll ever drink that stuff again. I can't believe Irene tried to poison me. Barrett nudged Carolyn, but she waved him off, and Shane shouted, I want a Coke! Barrett made a motion for his son to quiet down, but Shane shouted, What? Barrett knew his ears must be plugged. Nothing for me, Barrett said. The stewardess poured the coffee and handed it over. She poured a can of Coke into a plastic cup and handed both over to the little boy. She was about to take the next order when she stopped and bent close to Barrett. When she spoke, she did so with a thick European accent. Your baby is so cute. And would you look at that? He has a birthmark right over his right eye. Betty Lou and Barrett shot a look at the stewardess as she passed by and took more orders from the passengers around them. An hour later, the stewardess rapped on the door of the cockpit until it opened. The pilot and co-pilot looked back at her as if she reveled as she revealed the meteor tattoo on her wrist. She spoke in Italian. The baby lives. He's here, on this flight. The two pilots shared a look and brandished their own tattoos. The pilot activated the radio. Flight IA-2273 to tower. Cancel our arrival. This plane is going down over the Atlantic. There was nothing we could do. The stewardess took her place in the jump seat and shut the cockpit door. The thick metal plating barely drowned out the screams from the 148 passengers on board as the pilot pushed the stick forward. The jet engine screamed as the noise of the aircraft plummeled to the ocean's icy depths. The pilot looked to his fellow Sandpick Knights as he spoke in the radio. We pledge the sacrifice to Sandpick. We are doing our part to make the earth a safe haven for all citizens of the earth, man, woman, and child. Hail Sandpick, hail. The end.
What the fuck, Jason? What the? Dude, come on. They didn't need to do that. They could have lived happily ever after. You didn't have to kill off a baby. Well, a lot of people wanted to kill that baby. So it still was infanticide. It wasn't attempted. There was no attempted infanticide. It was infanticide. I mean, it was a lot more than just infanticide, but because it was specifically targeted towards a child, it was murder-homicide, or murder-infanticide, actually.
150 people on the
Or
airplane
suicide.
died.
It was infanticide-suicide. Jeez, man. What the hell? I thought it was a beautifully crafted story, and the way it ended, it tied it all together. I did not see it coming whatsoever that the whole thing was a hoax. Irene seemed to know a little too much than, she was supposed to, between the cardiac attack, knowing what room she was supposed to be in. I had also thought that her being, wet on her breast was, her lactating, but I didn't connect that it would be because she gave birth. I was like, must be a weird effect of being near the demon baby. That's honestly what my thought was, because I was still convinced the baby had to be a demon.
And I was trying to, I can't actually think when I read or I mess up, but I was still thinking at a point of whether you were right or wrong, because you picked
I was wrong.
Well, but
kind of, in a way. It depends what perspective you want to take.
It depends what perspective.
If you want the orchestrator of the entire thing, I was correct. If you want who was Sandpick, it was Betty Lou.
It was Betty Lou.
Which, you said uploaded, and you gotta switch that wording, or else it's gonna be too obvious in the.
I don't know. You negated it. You had it again. You're like, well, if she did upload, it must have been her. But you're like, you must have had a typo there.
I was like, there's no way she uploaded that. You really think she somehow figured out? No. And you know what? She did upload it, but she didn't make the videos herself.
No.
All she did was write. She wasn't even the AI voice that we saw. She wasn't behind writing that script or anything like that.
And so it probably was a picture of Nelson because Irene was pissed at him.
Yeah.
So she probably did, steal his image or use it as the inspiration. Is it what they call the inspiration image?
Yeah, sure. I don't remember.
I don't remember the word.
You think
for
I
it.
should know that, seeing as it's part of what I do, but anyway, that was a great story. Holy shit. You just felt the need to end it on a low note, though, didn't you? They were just like, nah, we could have this end happy and everything. You know, they could go to Rome, but we could kill everyone. Ha ha ha.
You know, we're sitting here recording this on New Year's Day, 2025, and sadly, recently there have just been 2 plane crashes. One in South Korea that I think did kill like
Yeah.
150, and I can't remember where the other one was, where it did have survivors. And I don't know what to think when fiction parrots real life or real life parrots fiction, because it, you know, I can sit here and read the story, and like you, it's a cool story. And I grew up with some of the Twilight Zone stuff, and I always love these unexpected twists. And yet to know that, you know, there are people out there who are living through the after effects of real plane crashes.
And, you know, that's the parallel that you constantly live with if this is the genre you're writing on, whether or not, you know, is it appropriate really to be writing about this? You know, and it's rough. It happened a lot in media, actually, after 9/11. 2 films that I remember got heavily impacted was, the first one is they were planning on re-releasing Fight Club. If you remember the end of Fight Club, they blow up a bunch of towers, a bunch of banks, because it, you know, that was the way that they could reset the debt in America. It was originally released in what, 1999, 98,
I don't remember.
somewhere in the late 90s, and they decided they were going to do this big re-release. They spent a lot of money towards it, and it was supposed to re-release, I believe, in October of 2001. And they had to scrap the whole thing. You can't release it. You cannot show that. It would not have made money. It would have been disrespectful. It probably would have lost respect for a lot of the producers and a lot of the organizers
And
of
the
that re-release.
actors.
Yeah. The other one was they were planning on making, it was in the early concepts of making a Forrest Gump 2. 9/11 hit, and I believe all the writers, including like Tom Hanks, just thought, what is the point of, you know, Forrest Gump 2 after this huge like American travesty? So that one ended up getting scrapped because of 9/11. But there's a lot of instances where like you look at the parallels between what is in a story and what is happening in real life, and you say there's not enough distance, there's not enough space between, you know, fiction and reality for it to be appropriate to produce this. And, you know, there's nothing against it, this just happened to happen. We're not mad at you, Jason. We're very happy you wrote this.
Jason wrote the story long before
Yes.
that. I mean,
This
by
was
the
written a
time
while
these
ago.
things, you know, get to Jack and I recording them, there have been written probably for 4 to 6 months. They've been edited
Yeah.
multiple times.
Well, in my case, it's been written for like 5 minutes. And then we were like, all right, you wrote it at the last minute. Let's go, Jack. Which luckily only I get that privilege of because of the position I'm in. But
It always is interesting to me as I listen to, you know, some true crime podcasts, which I don't listen to many because they're actually too violent for me.
yeah, I agree. This is based on real life. And it's like, I don't want to know,
What people
actually.
do to each other are horrible.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed at how the standard for fiction is higher. Like with fiction, things have to make sense.
Yes.
With real life, there is no making sense of it.
But that's the awful part, is that there is so little motivation going into every major crime. Not major crime, but going into like crimes of passion, like a lot of these murders.
No.
And you end up just seeing, 27 people died because that guy wanted money.
Or
He
that
was
guy
greedy.
was mad, or that guy was...
Yep. And, you know, it's funny because you do need a lot more motivation than that if you want to convince an audience that someone just committed genocide, you know?
And with all the stuff we have on, you know, whether it's social media these days and influencers, you know, here we have a story of you know, ostensibly a little old lady who believed her dreams, put it out there, people bought into it, and we're taking it to an absurd level. Now, the 3 Samprick Knights, I mean, they were in on it. So we're not
Yes.
talking about them. They were part of the grift. But these people who committed suicide, now I will disagree. You know, Betty Lou tried to absolve herself.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. I'm sorry,
sorry.
Jason. I had to disagree with you on that.
It
This
is her
woman
fault.
basically just going, is it really my fault?
Yes.
No. People
Yes.
do what they do.
No.
And the worst part of it all is that they're going to continue existing because they all died, and she didn't get the darn package.
Oh yeah.
So in
she
this
didn't get
universe,
she
the
didn't get
Sampic
sent
Knight,
out.
yep,
Yeah.
which means
I
that
didn't even think of that.
some other, grift can take place where it will again lead to infanticide, or lead to, witch burning, something like that.
Right.
But no, but because of that, it's a really great story when you realize that,
There's a lot to talk about in this little story.
this is what, Jason was able to write about with only 2 hours of talk time. I think it's really cool actually to see that. But you have to look at it from a specific perspective. Like, when you're watching Harry Potter and you realize how much that, like, you hate Dolores, and you absolutely hate that actress, and you have to go, wait, that actress is actually really great at what she's doing if you can manage to hate her this much in just the span of one movie.
Yep. She did that extremely well.
What actually took place here was really impressive.
So a little bit more about Jason Little. So he is a Texas-based writer with a knack for spinning tales that keep readers hooked. I'd say that was an accurate description of this episode. His contributions to Mysteries to Die For are packed with twists, suspense, and unforgettable characters. When he's not crafting mysteries, he's writing fiction on his blog at jasonlittlewriting.com, where you can dive into more of his stories and musings. A life insurance agent by day, Jason is also the proud dad of 2, a loving fiancé, and a dog enthusiast. He's big on exploring VR worlds, staying active, and finding inspiration in everyday life. You can follow him on X at JasonLWriter and stay updated on his latest projects, or drop by his blog to read more and connect. His links are in the show notes. So with that, we will wrap up. That wraps up this episode of Mysteries to Die For. Support our show by subscribing, telling a mystery lover about us, and giving us a 5-star review. Check out our website, m2d4podcast.com, for links to this season's authors and all of our past episodes. Mysteries to Die For is hosted by TG Wolff and Jack Wolff. Safe Haven was written by Jason Little. Music and production are by Jack Wolff. Episode art is by TG Wolff. Join us next week for a toe tag, which is the first chapter from a fresh release in the mystery, crime, or thriller genre, and then come back in 2 weeks for our next original story, where betrayal is the featured murderless crime. It's Opera Dinner Club by Deborah H. Goldstein. All right, Jack, take us out.